you know, to be able to be self-sufficient regardless of what might happen is big. Well, hello friends, and welcome back to the cabin. I'll tell you, we've got a lot to cover today. I've got a bunch of new material for the juice shack. As soon as I take these dogs for a walk, I'll show you what I have up there. But they had to get out because they've been cooped up for 2 or 3 days now with this nasty weather. I don't let them out too much because when they come back in, they're always nasty. But thank goodness I've got a wood floor where I can clean it up easily. But I thought we'd get out today and just kind of go for a little walk. I'll tell you something else. When you live up in the mountains like this, on the side of a hill, you need to watch how you're walking because your feet can slide in any direction depending on which way the ice has frozen. And I have bought it once or twice, I'm being honest with you, since it snowed because it is so slippery. And the other day, my friend Jimmy and I, we came down here to get some cedar to cut up there on the sawmill, and the dogs, it was probably, I don't know, 35 degrees outside, and the dogs were down in the creek, and he was like, what? He says, they're getting in the creek and it's this cold. I said, they don't mind. Well, like I said, I got quite a bit of stuff. I've been to the Five and Dime again. Okay, I can't stay away from it. But what I ended up getting was another shallow box right here to mount another plug-in for the batteries on the opposite side of the wall that I've put on the shelves. I also needed a way that I could hook the generator up to the 100-pound tank, and this is what my son ordered for me. So this valve right here comes apart on this end. This is the type of end that is required to screw up onto the 100-pound tank. This end right here is the end that they sent us that goes on the generator. And this also has like a little makeshift gauge to tell you about when your tank might be empty or full. So I've got this to install out there so that we can hook up the generator to the solar system, although we may never have to use it at the rate we started out at 54%, and every morning now I go out, I'm at 80%. So with the extra TVs and stuff, my daughter got me hooked up because I have smart TVs where I can use the internet because it's on all the time now, and I can actually stream television without watching the DVDs. So that's kind of nice. Picked up these bonding clamps from a buddy of mine. These are like the ones that we used to use for grounding in pedestals for buried lines that went to the houses. Since it's kind of like a C-clamp, it will allow me to reach in there and grab the side of the rail and also stick my ground up in there and then tighten it from the side. So I only needed, I think it was 4. He brought me 10 of them, which was really nice from him. I've also got a 20 amp right here that's going to go with the new outdoor plug that I'm going to install on the side of the juice shack so that in the event we ever needed to plug in an extension cord, we will have that there. I also picked up one of these multi-plugs, which is like this right here, and on your double plug in the back it just plugs on. That way I can run all of those cords into that spot right there. I picked up some of this clear Lexel caulking, so we've got the vent that I put in there plus this power plug and the hole that I drilled. I've got to do that, as well as I still have the brake shoe that we've got to put on the sawmill down there, but you know, since it's got 2, it still runs. It just takes a little bit longer to slow down, but I've still got that to install. And then we also got a new computer board to go in the simple set. Now the reason that they sent us that is every once in a while, I don't know what it is, you know, kind of like computers where they have a malfunction, but it won't go out of a certain mode that it gets into. So generally what I do is just turn the machine off, crank it back up, and then it reboots itself, so to speak. Anyway, I reported it as having a problem, and they went ahead and sent me, of course it's working now, right? But they went ahead and sent me a new board, so I've got that as a spare in the event that that one, and it only happens every once in a while, but like I say, normally just turn it off, turn it back on. but I do have a spare board now in case that one, like I said, goes bad. So we've got all of this stuff that we're going to install out there, and I think that that's going, I've got one more wire to pull, which was for that little short box right there. We can get the batteries on the other side, we can get those charged. I think we're pretty much set. My son and I, we also talked about that small portable HVAC unit that we've got out there. It's got a battery on the bottom. I've got it plugged into the Delta, which is a 2,000 watt battery bank. So that, in theory, gives it 3,000 watts to operate. But the amount of juice that it uses in order to do that, without having to rob from anything that we're already creating for the homestead up here, I told my son, now they can only accept up to, I think it's 500 watts at one time as far as input goes. So we don't want to exceed that. If we got one more 400 watt solar panel like we've got down there, I think what I've got in mind is mounting a pole right there beside the juice shack, build a small frame for that where it would pivot, just a single panel, put it on a pole right up here beside the juice shack and run that in so that during the daytime that would charge itself and then it could use its battery overnight. So hopefully, you know, with that going, then it would be able to generate power on its own and we wouldn't have to use any from the cabin. Because over a 2-week period of time, I think I've pretty much narrowed the use down to about 20%, because the last 3 mornings when I went out, I had 80% from 100% previous the night when I came in. And I told my son, if we go ahead and add the other 3 batteries and max out that cabinet, I think that, you know, we would be golden up here on the homestead, especially if that panel will generate the power where anything that we add to whatever we're doing up here would power itself. And I'll tell you, I want to give a big shout out right now to Signature Solar, because the system that they sold us when we told them what our needs were, and the equipment seems to be top quality. And as easy as it was to install it, they figured out everything. They sent us the bill. And, you know, we talked with the technician on the line and we kind of told him, you know, the setup that we had, and he gave us some tips to be able to put it all together and said that it should work fine. And I'll tell you what, friends, it is a really nice system. And so far, you know, even on the cloudy days, it's generating power. So I would say that it is doing its job. So my son and I were talking this morning about a rain catchment system, and that's probably one of the next big projects that we're going to embark on, but we do need some water around here. I've been carrying water for about 5 years, which is, you know, it's just something that I've gotten used to, and I'm trying to figure out the best spot to put it. And we're thinking that possibly if we go with an above ground tank, I think that the underground tanks are a little bit more expensive, but if we go with an above ground tank, I was possibly thinking about between those 2 windows right there. Now what I would have to do is I would have to build a frame right here, but both gutters could be sloped in this direction and could funnel into the tank right here. I could have a pump there, and I could even actually have one of the pressure tanks if I went ahead and built kind of like an enclosure around it. That way you wouldn't be able to see it, the sun wouldn't be able to hit it, even though, you know, I'm going to get a dark tank because you don't want algae growing in there. But then it could be piped and go right back in underneath the house right there. So that might be the best thing to do, and that's what we were thinking. That way we wouldn't have to run too many pipes and so forth. I could get an underground tank and put it right in that hole right over there, which is another idea. Of course, I have just a little bit of pipe work that I would have to do and then bring it back over here, but that was intended for the root cellar right there, which I could, you know, relocate the root cellar. And I'm thinking that since Jennifer has moved up here, that probably I should build a root cellar / storm shelter that would accommodate 4 or 5 people. The other thought is I could cut a hole back into this bank between my little berm wall and my tower back there. Of course, it's actually quite a bit of ways away back from the cabin, but I could build one right in here. I would have to add some more dirt over on the top of it, but I could build some fins or some short walls kind of stair-stepping down on each side to where that would hold that dirt to go up and over the canopy. And then the other thing that I'm going to have to do is we're going to have to put in a small septic system up here. Right down there, down about 2 feet underneath that slab, is a piece of 4-inch PVC. So what I could do is I could come out from this corner right here, right out by that tree, put my tank right out there, and then have a small leach field that runs back and forth this way. Because it's not going to take much up here for just one person, maybe two at the most, if my son comes up here and stays with me. So there's a lot of ideas and still a whole lot left to do, and just trying to figure out what's going to work best up here, because I want to keep this self-sufficient up here. I wanted the water to be self-sufficient, the power to be self-sufficient. Now we are hooked up on gas now, where we were burning wood, which we could always go back to that if we needed to. I still have the wood burner. You know, to be able to be self-sufficient regardless of what might happen is big. So I told Jennifer that I was going to give her one of those small power units, 2,000 watt units, because she's going to be without power, because she's going to have to be hooked up to the same leg that my sister is on. So that's going to be something that she's going to have to deal with living out here in the country, but that should get her by until they can get the power back on, you know, running her refrigerator or something like that. And then I've got several others, so if one went dead, then I could take her another one. And I think they're also going to invest in a generator to be able to have the ability to back the house up in the event that that does happen. So there's going to be, you know, some changes that are going to have to take place from living in town. Those are some of the ideas that we've got coming up in 2025. So friends, if being self-sufficient is kind of interesting to you, I'm learning it as I go. So stick around, hang out with us, because, you know, we're going to figure these steps out a little at a time. Anyway, thanks so much for stopping by. We certainly do appreciate it. And we look forward to seeing you back up here at the cabin again next time.